Right, it is 2nd of January 2023. Beautiful day. Feel a bit of warmth from the sun. Plenty of blue sky. I thought we'd have a look around the greenhouse. Before we do, I'll just I know I ain't really done much on these tree ferns here. I've got a couple of tree ferns in raised planters, as it were. They are open at the bottom, and I know tree ferns, they do get quite a big root mass underground, so they haven't got much room to spread out as such, but they can go down, and they're still looking fine even after the nasty 2-week freeze we had. They're still green. They're close enough to the house to be, they didn't really get frosted at all, so yeah, not too concerned about them. But yeah, let's have a look in the greenhouse. I've just opened the door up just to let a bit of air exchange after the cold period we had. It's obviously sort of since then, the last 2.5 weeks been quite mild, so it's good to give everything a good air. But we'll have a look inside and see what's going on. So a lot of stuff in here is just sort of cuttings I've taken from annuals, if you like, which or half-hardy stuff, which it's possible to lose over a period, especially the period we just had. So I know a lot of my ioniums, which are in my arid bed, which is under the shelter at the moment, they have a lot of the stems on them have collapsed, but I did take plenty of cuttings, so we've got stuff to replace, or if need be. Where do we start? Let's start at the left and work our way around. So just a total random selection of stuff that I've just chucked in here sort of at the beginning of winter. So the aloe arborescens, which is not a hardy aloe, we know it got down to, what was it, minus 1.7 I think in the greenhouse here. So this has shriveled up a bit at the ends, so the main plant, the main stem has sustained a fair bit of damage. It's still pretty green in the centre, but we know we've got a lot of shoots at the bottom which we can divide off if we need to. Not concerned about that. That's just a potted specimen that'll never really be hard enough to go out, I don't think. Ponytail palms, they seem pretty hardy as long as you keep them dry. There's a little cluster of 3 in there, brought from a very small plant, and they seem to be okay. They're outside for the summer and in a greenhouse for the winter. We have got a Mongave. So this is one of the ones, just a cheap one we got from Morrison's. I think this Lavender Lady, this particular type. Not looking overly convincing. I don't think it's going to die. Just, some of the older fronds have gone a little bit limp, but in general I think that's going to be okay. Interestingly though, I've got another sort of pup off one of the other, I think it's Pineapple Express Mongaves. I've got a few of these dotted about in a greenhouse and they all seem okay. So they're faring up better than the Lavender Lady, even at a very small size. Again, just sort of various cacti. I've got a couple of colocaceas which I've brought in. I've done nothing other than just keep them in here, not watering them. So they have obviously died off at the top. We expect that, but feeling the tuber itself is rock solid. Again, a lot of small little divisions from the some of the agaves I've got in the garden. So again, just backup if you like, or just stuff to grow on for pots. They're all doing fine. Right, so down here, interestingly, we've got some pedicites. This is the variegated type, and the foliage hasn't actually died down in here, even though we had minus temperatures. So we have got obviously slugs or snails in here somewhere, and they've been tucked into the leaves, but already we're starting to get new shoots on that. So that'll be a nice start off. I might have to put some, again, I don't like doing it, but some slug pellets in here just to keep them under control. But yeah, if we can get a good head start on them, as long as we don't get any real prolonged cold patches again, I think that'll give us a good head start for next year on them. So that is the pedicites variegated. Not really showing much variegation in the leaves at the moment, but yeah, we've got a couple of good sized pots there, and we have got a lot of the pedicites palmatum, which is like the gold spotted leaf ones. Obviously it's not got the gold spots on the leaves at the moment, and surprisingly these haven't really died down either. So I took a big clump out of the garden and potted loads of bits up. I thought, well, I'll have a few to sell next year and a few to redistribute in the garden. And to be fair, I've got quite a lot of them, because they do spread. Some of them have died down a bit, some are still green, and I can see at the back here some are even starting to reshoot again, so we'll get a good head start on some of them next year. We have got some tropical hibiscus in the corner there, which have held on to their leaves, so hopefully they'll pull through to next year. I've got a couple of palms up here. We've got a very small jubea behind this boot here. This is a yete, which I did have a bit of trouble with rot last year. And a lot of the bigger, older leaves died off, but that is starting to push out new growth even over the winter. So it's not dead, it's just going to take a bit of time to recover. I think that just got kept damp too long. I did have it in a greenhouse, and whether that's the humidity that affected that, but I expect that to fully recover next year. Got some little musabaju in pots here, which I dug up from the garden around the bigger ones, sort of late summer. And the main, this is not dead, it's still sort of solid down here. Obviously the foliage has died off, but already on that we've got an offshoot coming up. But yeah, so that they should be good little head starts on some musabaju next year. Right, so on top shelf here we've just got colocasia pink chinas, which I dug up a load from the garden because they spread like wildfire. So these are all little tiny rhizomes or tubers, whatever you want to call them, and so I potted a load of them up. So we've probably got about, I don't know, 12-15 pots of that. So as temperatures increase, I know we're still in midwinter, but being in a greenhouse environment, I wouldn't expect them to maybe start popping, I don't know, February, March time, when the sun comes around and hits the greenhouse fully. We're only just getting a little bit of sort of sun coming in this corner of the greenhouse at the minute, but as the daylight hours increase and the sun shifts, we'll get more light in here and it will warm up. Right, so back, the bottom here, we've got a lot of the Arandodanics, which we done propagations from last year. So that's all kept its green foliage. So we'll keep them damp over winter, not soaking wet, just damp, and they'll be fine to start kicking into growth as soon as the temperature's warm. Got a lot of cast iron plant, aspidistris. Just divisions I took from the main clump I've got in the garden. They are fairly slow growing, but they are pretty hardy. I've got a big clump in the garden. They're totally unfazed by the cold weather we've had, even though they are slightly undercover. But yeah, real nice evergreen, deep green, glossy leaves. So again, a lot of this sort of cuttings and stuff we were to take at the end of summer. They're all ticking over. Even with the minus temperatures, they've kept their leaves. I've got a couple of random house plants at the back. There's some philodendrons, so that's going to be an interesting one whether they pull through or not. I have got a couple of ioniums here, which is a strange one, so I took some cuttings. This is like a really lightly variegated one. I don't know if it's picking up on camera because the light's not brilliant in here at the minute. We've got two that are looking perfectly good, and the other three not looking so good. So that's a bit random, whether they just didn't take so well, and maybe these ones are better rooted. Yeah, again some very small hardy bromeliads there, divisions from the main clump in the garden. Little princeps, Trachycarpus princeps there, still very small, so I've give that a little bit of protection through the winter. So coming around this side, I've got a couple of brookmans here. So this is one I bought towards the end of the summer season last year. I think it's got like a peachy apricot flower on that one. I've got a little one here which is a stick at the moment. This is actually the variegated type. Which I bought last year. I think it's about £6 online, just as a tiny little cutting. So that'll be one for next year to watch. We have got some avocado trees which we grew from seed. These are 2 years old now. Well, I've just done the two. One's a lot taller than the other, but they have took a bit of damage from the cold, I believe, on some of the leaves, but some of the leaves are still looking quite good. But yeah, they've never had any special treatment. They've just been kept in a cold, unheated greenhouse for the last 2 winters, and still kick back into growth come spring. Got a very small, weak washingtonia robusta which I dug out the garden because I was getting a bit congested in one point. So I dug that out and it never really took very well, but it has got one leaf on it, so that's why that's in here, just to give that a chance. Up in the corner here, so I'll tell you a bit of a story. This is a Chamaedorea microspadex, which is half hardy, if you like. I'm going to try that in the ground next year. I mean, the thing is, I had a Chamaedorea radicalis for 3 years. It went through every winter, no problem. And last year, even though we had a mild winter, for some reason it just turned brown and rotted off. So that's a bit of a mystery. So that might be one I try again at a later date. But in the meantime, I'm going to try the Chamaedorea microspadex. I've got a sheltered, shadier spot for that. So that's going to be one for next year to try in the garden. Long since faded, but but this is a type of cycad. I'm not quite sure of the name. I'll have to look back on some of the older videos. So this is one I got off eBay, just a sort of small seedling, and you know, unheated. It seems to be fairly hardy. It's not really. A couple of the older leaves are a little bit yellow, but seems to be okay. So that's just been kept bone dry. I haven't actually watered anything in here for probably about 6 weeks, so I might have to go through and just water some of the stuff which may need watering, like the Scheffleras here. So I've got sort of 3 in small pots, so that is something I don't want to let totally dry out. Got a lot of the tetrapanics pups I dug out of from around the bigger plants early in the year, last year. So we've got a lot of them, some really small and some slightly bigger, but again, most of the foliage have died back on that, but that will kick back into growth. Again, the food colocaceae, I can't even remember what type these are. I've got a bad habit of not marking things up. I think these may be pink china just by the colour of the stem, so they're not actually even died totally back. So that will, even though this top growth is mushy, if I open that up there'll be a green leaf underneath that, but I'll leave that as protection, so I'll give that one a head start. Got a really small pineapple here, or a couple of little small pineapple divisions, which again we wouldn't think is hardy, but even at minus temperatures still alive, still solid, so that's interesting. So that's pretty much what's going on in here. This is a little pot of a giant Mexican taro and cactus, which I grew from seed beginning of spring last year, I believe. So already that's a nice little cacti pot there. I think these are actually the tallest growing cacti in the world, allegedly. So yeah, they're grown from seed and they're already a nice little plant there. Keep them nice and dry. Oh yeah, what I was just going to point out before I end the video is the so we've got a purple heart plant here, which is a type of Tradescantia, and this is one that's often sold as sort of annual in garden centres for outside, and it does tend to die back over the winter, as we can see, but that will reshoot again. But interestingly, I've got some cuttings of a sort of a different type of Tradescantia, which is like just an indoor plant, and that's looking pretty good. But yeah, so some plants will surprise you. Even indoor house plants can survive given the right conditions, you know, kept a bit drier. And there is a big pot there with that purple heart as well, and a very small cluster pot of cacti there. Right, so that's what's going on in the greenhouse. Like I say, this is just a situation really where I just shut the doors at the end of winter and just come in here maybe 2 or 3 times a month and just have a look at things and water the odd thing as needed, but in general everything's kept dry and cool in here. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.